When I stepped into one of the biggest leadership roles I'd ever held, one thing that I was determined to be was assertive. I wanted to be able to walk into a room and be confident, not timid, because that's how I felt, and have everybody listen to me. I mean, that's not exactly what assertive means at all, but to be honest, I didn't actually quite know what it means to be assertive. I just saw other amazing women be assertive, and then I thought, I think I want to be like that. But when I started talking about assertiveness, or even just reading up about being assertive, or how can I learn how to be assertive, I realized that assertiveness can often be confused with aggressiveness. People who are assertive are often labeled as being too aggressive with their approach. And so when we find these people who are quite aggressive, we can also call them assertive. Oh, that person's really assertive in their skills or assertive with their approach. So, hence the question, should female Christian leaders be assertive? And so, in this episode, I'm going to be answering that question. So, let's get started. Leading as a woman is tough, but leading as a woman of faith is next level. However, it doesn't have to be that way. God has called you into this leadership role because He says you are worthy. You are His child, and if He qualifies you, who in this world can unqualify you? You might suffer from imposter syndrome and believe you're not good enough, but God says you are good enough. Hi, I'm Rika, Whelan, Christian leader and workplace culture coach, and together we're going to navigate leadership with faith as our foundation. Let's get started. Grab your coffee or water, keep that notebook and pen handy, and let's jumpstart your leadership. Now, before we can answer the question on whether female Christian leaders should be assertive or not, let's have a look first at what it actually means to be assertive. Now, according to risely.me, and I'll put the link in the show notes below, assertiveness refers to the ability to express one's thoughts, feelings, and needs in a clear, direct, and respectful manner while also considering the rights and opinions of others. It is a communication and behavioural style that promotes open and honest expression, confidence, and self-assuredness without infringing upon the rights and the boundaries of others. Now, as I mentioned before, assertiveness can often be confused with aggressiveness, and aggressiveness refers to the behavioural communication style that is characterized by forcefulness, hostility, and the disregard for the rights and feelings of others. And so, definitely, yes, I thought when I came into the workplace or in that leadership role that I needed to be assertive. Now, when I thought about assertiveness, I thought more about that aggressiveness. Not aggressive in the negative sense, but more aggressive like I should be more firm and stand on my point and not let people walk all over me. I think that's what I kind of thought it would be, because I thought today as well, like, what did I have actually in my mind when I thought about that? Now, when it comes to aggressiveness involves a proactive approach to achieving one's own goals or asserting one's dominance, often at the expense of others. It can manifest in the form of verbal, physical, or passive-aggressive actions. And so I thought I'd share this story about an assertive, and you can't see me, but I've got my quotation marks here. I'm putting it like if you ever watched Friends, the episode where Joey does not understand how to use quotation marks or the inverted commas, and so I knew this assertive leader once, or so I thought. They knew what they wanted. They had their agenda all figured out. And when you were in meetings with them, you'd better not waste their time or they'd cut you off. And this happened multiple times. And because English is my second language, sometimes I might take a roundabout way of saying something. And you might have noticed that on the podcast as well. Sometimes it seems or feels to other people as if I'm just waffling. But that's just how my brain works. It's how my brain processes. And sometimes it just has to process what I'm trying to say. So instead of just saying something outright, I might first have to process it with words, verbally, and then I can finally say what I mean. But instead of just giving me the time to process, waffle a bit, and then finally say what I want to say, this leader would almost always cut me off and finish my sentence for me, because they knew what I wanted to say. They knew what I was trying to get at, but they would always finish my sentence for me. And I kind of just started accepting it as the way it is. Like, I didn't like it at all, but I just accepted it. And I made excuses for that leader, because I just thought to myself, well, they must be strapped for time. They must be really busy. We've only got this 10 or 15-minute meeting. So definitely it must just be, they must just, and I did know that they were frustrated with me because I just couldn't be concise in what I said. So it was definitely a skill that I was trying to learn. But again, how can you learn a skill like if it's about the processing of your brain? So yeah, that was a tricky one. But the other thing that I really struggled with in that sense, and specifically what I just mentioned, is to think on my feet. And so because I first had to make sense of things, I could never just say what I wanted to say, because I had to go about it in a roundabout way first. And so hence the reason I was striving for assertiveness, because I just wanted to say what I wanted to say when I wanted to say it. And anyway, the point is I actually had it all wrong, because assertiveness was never just about speaking my mind or coming across as aggressive or strong, as confident. But that's what I thought I had to be, and that might be the same for you. You might think that is exactly how you should be. But considering the definition of assertiveness, where you express your thoughts, feelings, and needs in a clear, direct, and respectful manner, while also considering the rights and opinions of others, then actually, in my humble opinion, yes, female Christian leaders can and should be assertive, because, expressing your thoughts and feelings in a clear, direct, and respectful manner, whilst also considering the rights and opinions of others, I can nearly guarantee that that's all of you. That's all of you listening to this podcast, because as female Christian leaders and as women of faith, we're constantly looking how we can express ourselves without infringing on another person's religion, or how we can express ourselves without someone feeling like we're pushing Christianity down their throat. And we've talked about this topic on the podcast many times, where we say, okay, but I'm a female Christian leader. How can I make sure that I balance my faith with my professionalism, for example? And so definitely I would like to assure you that if you've ever had the inkling like I did, or the feeling that you want to be assertive, maybe change your perspective about what assertiveness really means, and consider this definition: expressing your thoughts, feelings, and needs in a clear, direct, and respectful manner, while also considering the rights and opinions of others. And I'll put that in the show notes below as well. And that is from risely.me. And I think it's a really fantastic definition, because that is something I want to strive towards. Even on this podcast, I want to make sure that I express my thoughts, feelings, and needs in a clear, direct, and respectful manner, while also considering the rights and opinions of you, the listeners. And so I didn't realize that, but actually I was being assertive in that manner, although I might have taken a roundabout way and I wasn't being concise as what some people wanted me to be. But it was definitely something that I was doing, and it was just such a relief when I read this from risely.me, and I realized, like, wow, I think that I actually was assertive, and I didn't even realize it. I thought, and this misperception about assertiveness kind of being aggressive, or like treading on other people, or like pushing my opinions on people. And yeah, it's actually not that at all. So I've got a couple of tips for you on how you can practice being assertive. Some of you might already be assertive. You might just had a revelation that, I didn't realize, but I'm already assertive. But some things that you can do, and I've got 3 things for you here, is role playing. And role playing might seem silly, especially as busy professionals, but practicing with someone else can make it actually fun and less intimidating. So, a good example of this could be, let's say there's someone at your work that is really open and kind of really negative about Christianity, or they're very vocal about being an atheist or so. How can you, if you want to, of course, but how can you be assertive in that space? I mean, you want to express your thoughts, your feelings and your needs in a clear, direct, and respectful manner, while also considering the rights and opinion of that person that is the atheist. And, as Christians, we don't often, we are not like that. We are not like going, Joan of Arc on our battle horse, going in and like declaring that Jesus is Lord. Like, we don't do things like that. Most of us are kind of more reserved when it comes to things like that. But I found that people that are atheists or people that are different, other potential religions, and I won't name any names of other religions, but, they are more vocal about things like that. So, sometimes as Christians, we find it really hard then to be vocal, then to express our thoughts, feelings, and needs on that manner, because it's really tricky. And also, I really don't like debating. Debating is something that I'm really terrible with. Why? Because I struggle. I have to first process what I want to say. Maybe 15 minutes later, I might know what I want to say. My husband's not like that at all. He's really good at debating, and he can really think on his feet. And I'm not blaming English as a second language, because my husband is also English as a second language. So, you can't blame that, but I just can't think on my feet. But role playing that with someone else might be a really good idea, because then when something like that does happen again in your workplace, you know what to say. You can express especially your feelings. I mean, this person might be hurting your feelings. Then you can, because you've practiced it, you can actually express your feelings towards this person and say, hey, really respectfully, I totally respect where you're coming from with your views. But, these are my views, and I was wondering if we could agree to disagree, and then maybe, if possible, we move on to a place where we don't bash each other, where we just live in harmony, we work in harmony, because we're colleagues, we work together. And I would really just like to see eye to eye with you when it comes to our work. We might not agree on our personal things, such as religion, but I really want to see eye to you in this manner. And so you're being respectful, you're being clear, you're expressing your feelings and your thoughts. And so because you've role played that with potentially your husband or your partner or your a friend of yours, then that is less intimidating for you. Okay, believe me, it's still going to take guts. Guts is what's needed. We all need guts, okay? The second thing is workshops and training. So there is definitely some workshops and training that you can attend, but the baseline of any workshop or any training like that is also role playing. So that's why I mentioned it first, because I did this training called Crucial Conversations, and this is where you learn how to deal with really difficult people and to have those crucial conversations and not to back off from them. And although it was like a 2 to 3 day course, about 50% of that was role playing, because you have to practice. Okay. And then the last one is literally what I just said, practicing. So putting your skills into practice. Practice makes perfect. Very few people just learn something and then like the first time they get it right. I mean, kudos if that's you. I would love to be like that. But no, practice really does make perfect. And the thing is, this is now where you actually put what you've learned into practice. So not role playing with someone else, but actually doing it in the workplace. And you can start little by little. So let's say, for example, there's this little thing that someone does in your workplace that's like super annoying. And it's like, because there's not ever going to be a person in your whole life that there's not something about that person that annoys you. I mean, there's something that everybody does that's annoying. I do annoying things as well, and the people in my household have to put up with it. So thank goodness they do. So let's say, for example, that there's something really annoying that's like everybody is so annoyed by it, but they don't want to speak up. I've got an example. Somebody never puts the tea bag in the bin. They always leave the tea bag on the countertop in the kitchen, okay? And so it's just, somebody always comes in, or you come in and you see this tea bag on the countertop again. You get so annoyed because why can't the person just put the tea bag in the bin? And now it's stained the countertop. It's a white countertop. Can't they think for themselves? And you just get so frustrated, but you put it in the bin anyway. You move on because it's not that important. Now, a little thing like that is a good way to practice your assertiveness, because you can role play first, practice what you want to say. And I'm always a very big advocate for planning before speaking to someone. And then just going up to the person and saying, hey, so and so, and you can make it into a little bit more of a joke first, and then make it serious. But again, if you want to practice with assertiveness, then just say clearly what you want to say. So you can say something like, hey, I noticed that for a couple of days in a row, or for the last couple of weeks, you've been putting the tea bag on the countertop. Do you think it would be possible for you to put it straight in the bin? Because, it's staining the countertop. Then that person might say, oh, yes, I didn't actually, I'm so sorry, my bad. At my house, we just put it on the countertop because that's a cultural thing. And then you can say, oh, would you mind just here putting it in the bin? I understand it's a cultural thing, but it's staining the countertop. And quite frankly, everybody else, so you can kind of say it in that way, be concise, be clear, and just say that, look, I understand that that's what you do out of your home, but at work, I'd really appreciate it if you can put it in the bin. And so that's just a very little example, but the point is that you're practicing your skill of being assertive, so that when a bigger issue comes up, when there's a much bigger issue and you're sitting in a leadership team meeting, there's debates flying back and forth, you can actually give your thoughts and opinions without hurting anybody else's feelings, and knowing how to still make them feel as if they're valued, but then giving your opinion and saying, well, this is what I think, this is my opinion on this matter, this is how I feel we should do. What do we all think about that? And it's just not infringing upon anybody's rights and opinions in that way, and you're practicing. So in the upcoming episode, so this is the end of this episode, but in the upcoming episode, I'll be talking to you about how you can gain self-confidence in your abilities, because if you don't believe or have self-confidence in your own abilities, then actually other people won't either. And so self-confidence can really, really, really flow over to other people. People can see if you're timid. People can see if you've got self-confidence or not. And so if you want to rise as a female Christian leader, then you do need to believe in your own abilities. You do need to believe in the abilities that God gave you. You do need to believe that you are worthy and that you were chosen for that role. Whether you got it in the easiest way, whether you had to interview for that role or not, actually, all of that is besides the point, because you are in that role for a reason. So stay tuned for the next episode coming up next week, where I'll be talking to you about how you can gain self-confidence in your abilities. And you'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. And come and join us in the Facebook group. It's Women of Faith in Leadership on Facebook, our community on Facebook, or you can just go to womenoffaithinleadership.com, and there's a link where you can go straight to the Facebook group. Alternatively, I'll put the link in the show notes for you as well. So I hope you really got a lot out of that episode. Now your understanding of what assertiveness really means has been improved. And if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be super amazing, because that would tell the algorithm, that would tell Apple Podcasts or any of the other platforms to push out this episode to more female leaders. And that would be super amazing. So I know a lot of you are not on Apple Podcasts. You might be listening to this on Spotify, but on Spotify, you can give the 5 stars. On some of the others, you can give it a star as well. But what really, really pushes the algorithm is Apple Podcasts. And so I really just want to get this episode and this podcast really out to as many female Christian leaders as possible. Get the word out there. And if you want to share this episode, I would also really appreciate it if you could share it with a fellow female Christian leader. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll speak to you again next week. Thanks so much for listening. If this podcast blessed you in some way, the number one way you can thank me is by leaving a review. Your feedback means the world to me and lights me up every single time when I read it. And it makes me want to keep going. So please leave a review, and your review will also help other Christian women in leadership find the answers they are looking for. So whether you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, scroll down to the review section and leave that review. Then head over to womenoffaithinleadership.com and join our free Facebook community, and I look forward to engaging with you there.